Our coverage continues now following that horrific attack right here in our nation's capital. Two Israeli embassy staffers, a young Jewish couple soon to be engaged, shot and killed while leaving an event last night. Joining us now by phone, lawyer and former Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz. And Alan, we know that the alleged suspect here is in police custody right now. He was taken away from the scene and was heard shouting, "Free, free Palestine." With the recent rise in protesting across college campuses related to the Israel-Hamas war, how do you think we got here?
Well, first of all, let's remember that the killer, the murderer, didn't know that these folks worked for Israel or the Israeli embassy. They were killed because they were Jews coming out of a Jewish museum regarding a Jewish event focusing on human rights. So this is pure anti-Semitism and hate murders directed against Jews themselves. How we got here is through the violent protests on college and campuses and other places. I predicted, I have a new book out called The Preventive State, and it's about how to prevent crimes like this from occurring by being able to predict them in advance. And I predicted in my book that this would happen. I said that based on my experience as a longtime supporter of peaceful protests during the Vietnam period, I knew that violent protesters easily move over that red line into murder and killing. That happened during the Vietnam period, where violent protesters who broke windows and who smashed cars ultimately planted bombs and killed people. And so it was inevitable that the kinds of protests we saw on campuses, with harassment, with beatings, with holding people against their will, two janitors at Columbia, would inevitably lead to murders. And there are going to be more murders. I now have to get security. I'm supposed to speak tonight, and I have like 6 policemen around me because there's great fear of copycat killings. And it all grows out of these campus events that have occurred over the last almost 2 years. Now, I'm a strong supporter of free speech, but free speech which does not involve violence, intimidation, and harassment. And that's not what we are seeing on college campuses.
Alan, you mentioned peace, and it is so sad because that is how this event started, discussions over peace. Since this suspect has been charged with federal crimes that carry the possibility of the death penalty, do you think the Justice Department will pursue that?
Yes, I think they will. I think they should. I'm strongly, myself, personally, opposed to the death penalty, but if you have a death penalty, it certainly applies to a case like this, where you have 2 innocent young people about to begin their married life together, and they're murdered in cold blood, much like the case involving Angelo, the guy who killed the health worker. When you have these kinds of political hate murders, those are the kinds of cases that can be deterred, and having a very tough penalty, if not the death penalty, life with no possibility of parole. And also, we have to look to see if he had other people inciting him or directing him or involved with him. This has to be a very thorough investigation.
Yeah, speaking of investigation, and we know that possible terror ties, that is going to be a big part of that. As we look at this, Alan, from a national security angle, in your opinion, is this about who comes into the country, or is this a societal issue? We understand that the suspect, authorities are saying he came from Chicago.
Yeah, it's both. Obviously, we have homegrown terrorists, homegrown murderers. Obviously, many of our worst political murders, blowing up of buildings, were homegrown. But we also have people coming in from outside. And we also have, the media. I'm a strong believer in the First Amendment and free speech, but the Internet today incites people to murder. And when you hear people saying globalize the Intifada, that means kill. The Intifada killed 4,000 people after Israel offered the Palestinians a state on 96% of the West Bank, 4% of Israel, 100% of the Gaza Strip. The response was an Intifada in which 4,000 people were killed. And when people yell globalize the Intifada, it's not even a code word. It's a direct incitement to go and kill Jews, kill Israelis, kill people who are in favor of peace.
as you talk about what is going on internationally, it is so important to remember that this attack fits into a larger narrative of rising violence and rising tensions globally. Lawyer and former Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz, thank you for joining us. Go on.
No, you're absolutely right. This is a global problem, and it's going to get worse. That's my prediction. It's going to get worse.
We appreciate your time and your insight tonight.
Thank you.